right, so I'm going to open the meeting at 8:04. In accordance with the open meeting law, the board states for the record that this meeting is being recorded by Northland and may be recorded by other local media. We could all stand. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before you start, I'm just going to state that this is a budget hearing, it's not public comment. So public is welcome to come here, but we won't be taking public comment from anyone.
Madam Chair, through you, before we begin the police department's budget presentation, just a reminder for folks who might be watching us from at home or watching this after the fact. I know everyone in the room here is aware, but these hearings are on departmental budget requests. So what you see here is what each department believes it needs for the upcoming fiscal year's budget. There's a separate exercise that goes on each year where we are fine-tuning what our fixed costs will be and what our revenue stream will be. And that ultimately determines how much is available for funding for both municipal and school budgets. And we fully expect that some of what you see being requested here may not be able to be funded. For those who watched the last select board meeting on February 12th, we went through a presentation that detailed significant financial challenges that we're facing for the fiscal year 2025 budget. So, in the case of this upcoming year, it's probably fair to say that it's more real than ever that what you see being requested is not necessarily what may be able to be funded. So I just kind of put that out there, and I'll say that at the upcoming Monday night budget hearings as well for folks. But for those who are watching, what you're about to see is a request from the police department, but it is not what is being recommended to town meeting at this time. That will come forward most likely late March or April. Madam Chair, through you, if it's okay, I think we can turn it right over to the police chief, Chief Mark Zimmerman, to make the presentation.
Welcome, Chief Zimmerman.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everybody. As part of the police department's FY25 budget proposal, we previously submitted a written document detailing our funding request and the reasons for it. For the purpose of today's presentation, I've been asked to focus on the issues and needs facing our department. I prepared a brief overview of some of the highlights of our FY25 budget proposal. Each year during the budget process, our goals and objectives are set with a focus on how the North Reading Police Department can be a partner to contribute to the overall direction, priorities, and vision set by the town. I believe that our budget document is one of the most important statements I can make as a police chief. Our budget is a foundation that provides focus for our department to effectively allocate our resources on some of the most important issues facing the town. I want to acknowledge all the hard work that members of the North Reading Police Department put into this budget. Specifically, I want to thank our administrative assistant, Kayla Gardner, who's here with me today. Also the administration staff. I have Lieutenant Joseph Thibodeau, the executive officer, and also not here is Lieutenant Thomas Incarnaccio and Lieutenant Derek Howell, who also contributed. Today, as part of the presentation, we provide a brief overview on grants that we've received, our budget statement, small capital requests that we have, our fleet management update, and our goals and objectives for FY25. In FY24, we received a grant of $82,000 for the 911 training grant. This grant covers the cost of training both police and fire personnel in 911 call procedures, as well as the cost of equip the dispatch center. Also in FY24, we received a body camera grant from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety to cover the initial purchase of body cameras for 35 officers. A requirement for the grant was that the town and the union had come to an agreement. To date, the Superior's Office of the Union, including chief have come to an agreement with the town. But as of today, the patrolman decided the union has not come to an agreement with the town on the body cam cameras. We also received a grant from the U.S. Department of Justice for bulletproof vests. Each year, this is a little bit different depending on the needs. The vests are 5 years, so not every officer expires at the same time, so the grant is at different amounts at different times during the year. We also received a $30,000 grant from the Department of Mental Health. This year, we utilized that grant with the assistance of substance abuse clinician Laura Miranda, and we provide mental health first aid to all our police officers. And we also received $125,000 for the drug-free community grants program. On October 1st, 2021, the town of North Reading was awarded the federal drug-free community grant, which provides financial support of $125,000 annually for 5 years. This marks the second and final round of funding through this grant. Funding covers the full-time salary benefits for the grant director coordinator, supplies, travel, training, promotions, printing, and more. The drug-free community program director have made a positive impact on our community and will be a priority for our department moving forward. This is just a budget summary. So our FY25 proposed budget reflects a decrease of $49,026 or 1.1% from the appropriated FY24 budget.
Oh, good. Move to recommend.
Yeah. Thank you for the presentation.
Next.
So this is a summary of the funded FY24 budget compared to our request for FY24. And I detailed some of the increases and decreases. So you can see that the biggest decrease was $85,154, and that was due to police personnel costs. So in FY24, we had the retirement of Chief Michael Murphy, Lieutenant Thomas Romeo, and Sergeant Michael McAuliffe. So 3 senior police officers that had base salaries that were significantly higher than the entry-level officers that we hired. And that's the reason for that decrease in personnel costs. An increase of $17,043 in the small capital was the proposed to purchase 4 new radar detectors and 3 speed board signs. When I took over as police chief, I met with all the police officers, and a recurring theme that I heard from all of them was I was asking, what can we do better? How can we help you? How can we make your job better? And one of the frustrations I heard more than once was that our radar equipment was subpar. And I looked into it. We hadn't purchased radar detectors in many years, and so we were piecemealing them together, trying to get them. And right now, I'm not even sure, to be honest with you, if we have any that we might have 1 or 2 that work. So
Good to know.
that's one of the reasons for that request. And we always get requests from residents for speeding.
Yeah.
So we were looking to purchase 3 more speed board signs. The next one is National Core Competency Training, which is $12,949. Right now we have 9 EMTs on the police department, and every other year they have to get trained in National Core Competency training. So last year it wasn't on the budget, but this year it is on the budget. So that's the cost to train those 9 officers in that training that they need national certification for. The last one it's called Rewire 4 Officer Wellness Training, and this is an officer wellness training that, as we did last year with the mental health first aid. Obviously, officer wellness is a priority, not only mine but our whole command staff. And this is a training. This is going to be put on by a retired Chelsea police officer. They can teach officers theory and skills to have a great understanding of how thought, feelings, and behaviors impact their lives. So those are the major increases. So as a total comparison, decrease of 90,833. You'll see that that's different than what I had on last slide, which was the 85,000. And that $5,000, roughly $5,000 to $6,000 difference is the decrease in overtime. So that's a total decrease of 2.3%. Our expenditures are up 8.7%. And those expenditures, some of the programs that we run that have gone up in price, there's a software company that we use, Cellbrite, has gone up. The Power DMS is a software program that we use for accreditation, has gone up significantly. So that's really where those increases come from. Small capital, as I spoke about, with the radar detectors and speedboard signs, and the total of all that brings the, like I said, our budget is a 1.1% decrease for the year.
Chief, can I just have a quick question on
Yes.
the rewired officer wellness
Yep.
training? Is that mandatory for everybody?
It will be,
It will be? Good.
yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's vital. That's
Yeah,
great.
so, yeah, that will be mandatory, just like the mental health first aid was. Any of those trainings, we make them mandatory, that every officer receives them, so it will be.
That's good.
The next is the fleet management. Every year, we go through the fleet and see what we determine. This year, we determined that the department is in need of two patrol vehicles. The decision based on several factors that, when looked at in its entirety, should enable the department to maintain a safe and reliable fleet. The factors analyzed were total road miles of the fleet, engine idle hours, and the overall analysis of the maintenance, costs, and projected potential financial liabilities of the fleet throughout FY25. Historically, when analyzing fleet costs, there is a drastic increase in repair costs, out of service time, and potential safety issues when a delay in regular fleet replacement is not funded. For any proactive fleet replacement program to be effective, annual replacements are necessary. We've identified 2 older patrol vehicles which have high miles and high hours of engine idle time that we requested to replace. As everybody knows, we ran into supply chains, so that in FY24 we got appropriated for 2 new police vehicles, which we did purchase, but we didn't get them online until the end of calendar year 23. So if we do get approved for these, we anticipate probably an 8 to 12 month lead time before we can get these 2 new vehicles online. And I'd just like to note, it should be noted that the vehicles that are decommissioned from us are traditionally transferred to the DPW for town hall pool vehicle use. During the last 2 replacement cycles, marked cars were assigned for town hall use and 1 to the fire department. So when they do come out offline for us, we do reallocate them either to the town hall, and like I said, this year, we went to the fire department to use. So this year, the cost, as you can see, for the 2 new vehicles is $45,443. Emergency outfitting and lettering, $19,905. We won't need to purchase laptop computers for these 2 new vehicles. The radios, and then the cruiser program. And if you multiply that by 2, it's a total of $141,497 for the 2 new marked vehicles.
Before you continue.
Yes.
Chief Zimmerman, just, if everybody can hold their questions, just let the presentation go, and then at the end, I'll have my colleagues ask questions, and then we'll go to the final.
Okay. Next slide is, we've identified 5 goals and objectives for FY25. First is to begin the transition to regional dispatch. In October of 2023, the Select Board voted to sign an intermunicipal agreement with the North Shore Regional Emergency Communications Center, the REC. It is anticipated it will take approximately 12 to 18 months for this transition to be completed. During FY25, the department will begin the work to transition to the REC. The second one is begin the implementation of a recovery coach. At the October 2nd, 2023 town meeting, money was appropriated to the opiate settlement special purposes stabilization fund. This warrant article was in anticipation of the creation of a recovery coach position for the town. During FY25, the police department will be helping to develop and incorporate this position as we move forward. A recovery coach would expand our approach to a four-part team approach to address addiction. We have the first three in place currently: prevention and education, which is Amy Luckowitz; treatment and intervention, which is Laura Miranda; and then enforcement is the North Reading Police Department. Third is we conduct a Citizens Police Academy. In FY25, the department is anticipating conducting a Citizens Police Academy for the community. Citizens Police Academy is a great way for community members to learn about the work that we do at the police department. It is also a wonderful way for our officers to build relationships with the community members that we serve. Fourth, as I mentioned before, is the officer wellness training, the Rewire 4 by ROCA. We're anticipating having that training done in FY25 if we get approved. And the last objective is the continued efforts to minimize social and over impacts of illicit drug use. It's on a budget every year, and it's a goal. We work towards it. I don't know if we'll ever complete it, but we certainly work on it every year and continue to work on it. It's to minimize the social and overall impacts of illicit drug use. Our department developed a multi-pronged approach. We focus on 5 areas to better address the crisis: education, prevention, intervention, referral to treatment, and as a last resort, prosecution. And we'll continue to educate our community and create opportunities for our officers to make a positive impact in this area. So those would be the 5 goals and objectives for FY25 for the police department. Also listed is the Drug-Free Communities Director's objectives for FY25. She has 5 of them. Assist with developing the recovery coach position. She's been assisting us along the way in developing that, getting that developed, getting the job description, and getting that going. Reduce past 30-day use of marijuana across all grades to an average of 6%. Increase core measurement response rate from an average of 47% to 65%. Complete 2 tips compliance checks for all vendors. Increase coalition attendance from an average of 8 to 10. FY25 goals and objectives from our mental health substance abuse clinician, Laura Miranda. Increase social media presence of mental health substance abuse clinician role. Coordinate with the library to offer promoted mental health-based reading on an ongoing basis. Establish a town mental health book club. Offer at least 1 outsourced mental health training to North Reading community. Increase awareness of residential substance abuse treatment programs by way of visits, information gathering, and collaboration. Offer and maintain the first responder wellness program. This is the last slide. It's just a FY25 budget proposal summary. Our proposal FY25 budget reflects a decrease of $49,026 or 1.1% from the appropriated FY24 budget. This budget proposal will provide the best means for the police department to deliver the most efficient and effective police services to the town. We ask for your support, leadership, and partnership in our efforts as we work together to overcome the town's challenges. And that's all I have. I'll take any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cabrera.
It's not a question, just a follow-up comment, with regard to, can you go back a slide just for one moment? Obviously, as was indicated, a significant driver of the decrease, in fact, it is a decrease, is turnover in the department, but also that we do have an unsettled contract for our police union that we are in negotiations on right now. So that will have an impact on the budget at some point in the future, but I want to note that's not reflected. Part of what is unsettled is fiscal year 2024 and 2025, so there will be an impact. I don't know whether that will be clearly outlined before or after we go to town meeting, but one way or the other, it will have an impact. So that's all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the panel?
Just, could you go back to Amy's goals and objectives?
I just need some clarification on something here. What is it? What is this increased core measurement response rate from, I don't know, yeah, from 47 to 65%?
So, my understanding, so that part of the grant, she has to report each year, and there's a core measurement studies that they have to do, and they gather information from the middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. Last year, they had some issue with the 11th and 12th graders, so I think it was towards the end of the year, and not all of them, not as many participated as they would have liked to actually make it a valid data. But myself, Amy, the superintendent, and the principals from the middle and high school, we've already met to try to address this problem, and we do have a plan in place with the schools in this help to get those core measurements back up so that it'll be valid.
And the last goal there, the coalition attendance, what is that?
So the attendance for the coalition meetings, I think, since I've been there, it seems like the attendance has gone up.
Yeah.
So it sounds, when I talked to her, it seemed like some of the attendance was lacking for a while, but it has seemed to improve since I've been there.
That's for the community impact.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm...
Yeah, oh, the community impact team,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then,
No.
okay.
Well,
The coalition is
The
different than the
coalition,
community
yeah.
impact.
Exactly,
Right.
yes. It looks like we're talking about attendance for the coalition.
Yes.
And it's getting back to this position. You
Mhm.
said that it's funded through grants.
Yes.
Through what fiscal year? And is there any indication that grant money will be available beyond whenever it runs out?
So this, it's a second 5-year cycle that we're in currently now. It expires September of '26. And after that, my understanding is we can't reapply for it again, so we'd have to come up with some other funding source through the town to continue the program. But it is not another avenue that's available through the federal grant cycle.
And I would imagine that you would be recommending that we be cognizant of that,
Yes.
that we find somewhere, somehow, the ability to retain this position going forward, and we should be mindful of it, that, well, there might be a little savings this year, there's a significant increase coming in the next fiscal year for at least 9 months of that year, because it runs out 3 months into the fiscal year, correct? So
Yes.
I just think it should be on everybody's radar screen that, you know, we were fortunate to get the grant, and Amy was able to secure it, and then Amy was willing to fill it, which was wonderful, and she's done a fantastic job for us.
Yeah.
You know, she's done a terrific job for us, for the department, and that it's now become an integral part of your operations and a resource for the community that is at risk of being lost if we don't look ahead and plan on funding it.
Yeah, so like you said, so FY '26 would have to review and figure out how, if and how we're going to fund that position as of September of '26 when it expires. But it is on our radar. We've had preliminary talks with the town administrator and the finance director, so we are aware of it. And it is on our radar, and something, I agree with you, I think she does a great job, and I hate to lose that position for what she does for the community, but we'll have to figure out how we can fund it if possible.
Mr. Gilberto?
Madam Chair, through you, now, obviously each budget year is taken, you know, when evaluating what we have for revenue and prioritizing things. But I think finance director, myself, the chief, we're all committed that, you know, this is a priority. That, you know, it's not just hopefully we can find the money. It's a priority to maintain the position here. You know, that may have an impact elsewhere in the budget at some point in the future, but it's a priority. Thank you.
And I would say that I would feel it was a priority also. She's done an amazing job. We're lucky to have that. What she does is, we're so fortunate to have it. What was the total of that grant? Is it
125?
125,000.
Right, yeah, so we should be cognizant of that going forward. Anything else, Mr. O'Leary?
No, and just that we are, it's hybrid vehicles, which is a
Yes.
plus. They've been operating fine.
Yeah, we
No.
haven't, all the officers seem to like them. We haven't had any issues with them that are not what we have with any of the other vehicles, so these would be 2 more hybrid vehicles. And so, yeah, we continue to go with that.
Good.
Mr. Walner?
Yeah, I had a question about when that cliff ended for the drug-free communities director, so you answered that. And then on the salaries, I have heard what Michael said, but I believe it does not include potential future contract negotiations.
Correct.
But it does have a COLA, I assume, in the salary budget, is that correct? Sorry?
Preliminary in the salary pool right now.
Okay, so what do you anticipate, at least under normal situations, like a COLA is in there? Okay.
That's in a different line
Yeah,
item,
they're
though.
different
It's not in the department. The salary pool is under the administrators, right? Administrator?
It's appropriated separately.
It's separated.
If there's a
So it's not
resolution
in
that takes
this.
place.
Not in this?
It's
Okay.
not in this.
It's not reflected here. So if, for example, if we were to settle negotiations, we might come back in with a revision to this document to reflect that, and a revision to the salary pool to reflect that as well. If we don't settle in time for that, then we would need to address that at a future town meeting for
Okay.
appropriation.
All right, so the only other third one I had was about the mental health counselor. And I saw one of your bullets said you're doing like outreach once a year, I think is what I saw. Is that right? Offer at least one.
One outsourced mental health training to North Reading.
Yeah, I would just say, I think Amy does a great job of, paying her a lot. You see a lot of her press releases in there all the time. I think probably, the mental health substance abuse clinician tier is a well-kept secret, it feels like to me, and I think, more visibility even just on press releases goes a long way, and I would encourage that going forward. So I think it's good doing outreach, but I think you should do more, because I think a lot of people probably just aren't even aware of the resource. And it'd be good for people to know that. And I'm sure she gives out lots of referrals. I mean, she can't handle it all herself, but I'm sure she gives out lots of referrals. And so, just having people have a place where they can go and call and get some help, get referrals is a big deal. It's only extra comment I have. Thank you.
Finance? Anyone? Questions?
Can you just remind me on the coalition, is the 125 for the 5 years, or is it 125 per year? The grant?
It's per year.
So 125 per year?
125 per year.
Okay, and my second question is just out of curiosity, have you saved any on your gas with the hybrids?
So we haven't done a study or survey on it, but since Lieutenant Thibodeau's here, he just told me this week that Andover did one, and I don't, do you recall this?
Oh, they do a cycle very similar to us, where they try to replace every 3 years. And when they went and looked back, they were saving roughly $11,000 per cruiser in gas, almost a third of their budget, based on theirs. And a lot of that is the idle time that the cars aren't running. And it also includes oil changes and other maintenance that you don't necessarily need if the cars aren't running as much. So it's fairly significant.
Thank you.
How's that? Okay. Anyone else on the finance? Questions, comments?
Madam Chair, just
Oh, yeah.
just in relation to the regional dispatch. That isn't necessarily a money saver for us, right? It's just we're transferring some responsibilities here. It actually frees up officers.
Yes. Well, yes. Yes and no. Like, we'll still have a police officer in the station. How we do the overnights is we're still working on. But it will potentially free up a police officer. But it's not a money savings.
No. But it's from a human resource standpoint, not just for the police department, but for the fire department, it allows us more flexibility as far as personnel available to respond to emergency situations.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And again, as far as
full implementation of that timeline?
So they said 12 to 18 months. We had, with Madam Chair and Town Administrator, the Fire Chief, we met back in March. I mean, we're in March, in February. And they said 12 to 18 months. They were looking, we'd be fully implemented September of 26. I mean, 25, September of 25. So, time to get all the infrastructure and everything. It was September of 25.
I think it's an important initiative that we took on a few years ago, and I also want to acknowledge the fact that both the firefighters union and the police unions have all agreed to, contractually agreed to help us implement this, which is a great assistance to the town, so that we don't have to enter the negotiations now, that we've signed into an agreement. It's all said and done, they've agreed to it and bought into the program, and that's great. So it's looking forward to...
A long process. It started with my predecessor, Chief Murphy, started probably 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago.
Yep. So again, I just want to acknowledge the rank and file for working with us to get this implemented. So.
Yeah, and I would say, we were able to go and have a tour, and it was impressive. Burlington, Middleton, and they're actually going to staff for us. You know, they're going to add staff for North Reading, so very impressive. It's going to be a great addition to the town.
And again, the state's initiative in relation to this is also vital, because it really is sort of a cost savings for us, because it's being heavily subsidized through state funding to fund the dispatchers, to encouraging communities to go to more regional dispatching, and I think it's great that we're taking advantage of it.
Agreed. All right, anyone else? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you. Now, five. What page are they?
If you click on the table of contents, click on the fire department, it'll take you to it.
Oh, well,
Yeah, that's a new feature that we have.
Wow.
That's why the Gloria had written all of those.
Oh, let's see.
Just click the name.
Wow. Pretty
get out
good.
of town.
I can't get in.
Wow. Let me fill up my coffee before the chief gets going.
Finance committee, there's some bagels, donuts, and coffee. We have a minute.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day.
He didn't say how many vehicles Andover had though, did he? Because we only currently have 2.
If they said 11,000 per vehicle, are you looking for the total?
I thought he said 11,000 a year, not
Oh,
per
okay, that number seemed too good to me. I'm liaison with the police, so I'll confirm that.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering, and even, because right now we only have 2. And he did
Two
say...
new ones. There's a whole bunch of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought we only had 2 at the point.
Yeah, I think we bought hybrids last time, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we need to know the vehicles that they have versus what we have, but he did say it was a similar size.
It does make sense, the idle time.
I know.
Wouldn't be burning a lot of fuel, so it does make sense if we
Well, it would have to
significant.
turn on and on, right?
Hmm?
Because I know, like, when we have the ones that if you're at a stoplight, that it shuts off.
Right.
But if you have air conditioning on, it has to kick in.
Head on.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chief.
Good morning, how are you?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Before you start, I've got a request from Mr. Wallner, and I think it's a good idea. Everybody knows who we are, but not everybody knows who the finance committee are. So if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself.
Sure thing, yeah. My name is Nick Malacca, I live at 138 Chestnut Street. I think I'm currently the newest member. Started last June, and happy to be here.
What was your first name again?
Nick Malacca. Yep. This isn't technically my first police, fire, DPW, even though I wasn't officially a member. I logged in last year, and it was very informative, so.
Dan Mills, current vice chair.
Abby Hurlbut, the current chair?
Well, we all know him.
I hope not.
I think Abby's been on the finance committee since before I was born, most likely. It's a long time. I'm Matt Davis, I'm the clerk.
Janine Imbriano.
Sorry?
Janine Imbriano.
Thank you. All right, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, so for you.
Chief, just before you start, I'd just like to acknowledge passing of former Chief, retired Chief Harris, and our condolences to the department. He's a tremendous mentor for a lot of the members there, and not to mention father and grandfather to a couple of the other members, 3 or 4 members of the department too. So Chief Harris, wonderful guy, and I know it's a loss. And when it happens, I know the department feels it. So just,
I really appreciate you saying that, and I will pass that along to the Harris family.
good. And the rest of the group too.
Thanks. Thank you very much. So, I am the Fire Chief Don Stass, and I'm here to present this year's FY25 budget presentation request. For this year's presentation, I've been asked to conduct a brief presentation that focuses on the items that are driving any changes to my budget request from FY24 and referring to an in-depth review of the past year's accomplishments and statistics, which I will touch on only briefly in the forthcoming slides. So before we start with the presentation, I think it's important to always make a statement regarding the funds that we're entrusted with from the public. In the form of a budget statement, that the North Reading Fire Department is committed to serving the citizens of North Reading in the most professional, effective, and efficient manner possible. The services that North Reading Fire provides depends on the funding from the town, which we treat and manage as our own through efficient budget management, transparency of what we request and spend, and accountability throughout the entire budgetary process. So in briefly reviewing the past year, the department responded to 2,874 calls for service, with 1,687 of them being medical, resulting in 1,228 transports. The department collected, as of the date of me writing this, $933,000 in ambulance fees, which is currently ongoing and will continue to be for the next 6 months. We received a firefighter safety and equipment grant for $18,636 for SCBA bottle replacements. We appointed 6 new firefighters, 4 in 2023, and 2 most recently this past week in 2024 due to retirements. And we're also preparing for 2 more retirements in 2024. And we will be transitioning to the North Shore Regional Emergency Communications Center in the next 18 months. To summarize at the end of this presentation what I'm requesting for FY25, the department is requesting $4,824,887, which is a budget increase of $756,417 for FY24. The major driving factor in that request is my request for 4 additional firefighters for the department. In into a much smaller degree a forcible entry training device, and a very much smaller degree, a small increase for the department and in the way of the vote. So as I said, the total increase to the operations line is $760,417, which includes hiring 4 new firefighters and all of the training, backfill, equipment, and other related needs that they would have in regards to that hire. $9,000 for a forcible entry training unit, and approximately $1,700 for department head increase. Fire alarm line decreased by $4,000. EMS call and the mechanic program showed no change. So the forcible entry training prop is basically a very heavily built double metal door. And what this provides us is a forcible entry training tool that we can practice on and hone our craft, because they're very complicated to get into, and to make it really simple, there's no way to practice that skill at the department or out in the field without destroying things. And people don't want to relinquish or give us doors to destroy so that they're not to replace. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but also the quicker that we're able to get through these complicated doors, the quicker we can mitigate the threat. So we can get water on fire, we can get somebody else that's trapped, and this device will be implemented in not only daily training, but quarterly training and any type of, we brought on site and actually set up at the front of the structure if we had a training house to go into. So complicated situations go further, make that more realistic. So that's the lesser driving factor. Getting into the major ask for the increase is the increased staffing. So in doing that, I'd just like to review where we're currently at, which is a captain and 4 firefighters on each group, of which we have 4. Firefighters are assigned to specific positions, and they rotate through those positions every week. What I'm trying to get to is a group structure of 6 members, at this point anyways, with a captain and 5 firefighters, again, each assigned to a specific task that they would rotate through every week. As Chief Zimmerman pointed out, and I pointed out at the beginning in the review, we are trying to get to regional dispatch, which would allow us and that firefighter in the desk position to actually respond out, which will make up one of the 6 eventually in the next 18 months. So now the big question is why? Why do we need this? Why do we need additional staffing? And that revolves on 4 specific items that I've identified regarding our increased call volume. Because of that, the need for calling back off-duty members, the failure of that callback system, and the safety implications that all is entwined into. So reviewing quickly our callback figure, or excuse me, our response figures, comparing 2023 to 2022, we've increased our calls for service by 180. We've increased our total EMS responses by 49 calls, and our medical transports by 34 calls. Our total EMS calls are 59%. I should rephrase that. Our EMS calls are 59% of our total call volume, and 43% of those times we're transported to the hospital, which gives us a 7% increase in total calls for service and 3% increases in the medical calls and transports, which are significant by themselves. And looking backwards and conducting a 25-year analysis between 1998 and 2023, It's gone from 1,871 calls to 2,874. Our EMS calls increased from 940 to 1,687. Our transports increased from 493 to 1,228. Our total EMS calls has increased by 9% to 59%. And as you can see, in 1998, EMS were, or medical transports rather, were 26% of our total calls, while today they're 43% of our total calls. So that is a 54% increase in the 25-year period of call volume, a 79% increase in medical calls alone, and our medical transports increased in that 25-year period by 149%. So this is all significant because as our call volume increases, our reliance on the callback system increases exponentially, as you've seen here. And when we can't fill those or backfill the station effectively with that callback system that we're using, it creates some concern to staff and to the community.
Can you explain callback?
Sure, I'm going to try to keep it very simple so everybody understands it. We have two forms of callback. We have station coverage, which is callback done in which is hiring of off-duty personnel done in a limited fashion. So with the amount of people that we send to the hospital, and I can use ambulances because that's the primary driver of station coverage, with the amount of people that we send to the hospital transporting a patient, we hire back that same amount of people so that we keep the minimum amount of staffing in service at the Northern Fire Department. That also covers if we go out of town, mutually in the fire engine to another community for a fire event. We hire back what left town. When we have the potential for an in-town incident, it's truly called a callback, and that revolves around a box alarm. So when we have the potential for an in-town incident, well, we do have an actual in-town incident, we transmit a box alarm, and the entire staff is allowed to come back. So all of the permanent and part-time staff members. So those are the two types of callback. So for station coverage, so let me back up this down. In 2019, I started gathering data because I noticed that the callback system had eroded over time, and I wanted to start gathering some facts. So in 2019, I started doing that and collecting data. And it's displayed, or part of it is displayed here. I went back, and I'm only showing 21 to 24, or 6 months of 24, because we're still in it. And the 2 years prior to was very similar to FY21, so I didn't see the need to show it, but I can certainly provide it to you. But in that time frame, just reviewing the data, of 1,046 times in 21 that we needed station coverage, the station was only partially covered 92 of those times and was uncovered 8 times. In 22, there were 1,183 times that we needed to provide station coverage. During that time frame, the station was partially covered 335 times and uncovered 81 times, which has increased to 588 times of partial coverage and 150 times uncovered in 23. And through the 6 months of FY24, it's been partially covered 315 times and uncovered 66 times. So as you can see the trend, it's not getting any better.
Excuse me, we say uncovered, so if the ambulance goes out with two firefighters, those number of times, you weren't able to get 2 firefighters to come back.
What it is for uncovered, yes. Regarding box alarm callback, where everybody's allowed to come back to the station for emergencies or potential emergencies. And just so you have an idea of the numbers that we're talking, on average, we transmit between 130 and 145 box alarms a year. So that's the amount of times that we're looking for people to come back.
How many? 135 to?
130 to 145 times a year. And again, using those same years to compare, and knowing that the trend had already started to increase prior to starting to gather that data, the amount of people that are coming back on average through the year has decreased. It took a little bump so far in '24 up, but from 7.24 people or persons down to 5.32, down to 4.21, and then a slight increase to 4.97. But what's significant about that is that we need help. There's potential for either needing that help or actually needing it to immensely. And we need that in the form of manpower and actually an apparatus going to the scene. And we're not getting it. So some of the reasons I believe we're not getting it, it's fairly complicated, but we've had an inordinate amount of retirements over the past 4.5 years. Because of that, we've had to try to hire. Hiring has been extremely difficult, as you guys are aware of. So the staff has been working around the clock, held over, voluntary. We maintain a minimum amount of firefighters on shift. So on average, the normal work week or work year for the fire department is 2,184 hours. That's the total amount of hours for our department members work. So on average, the overtime that individuals have worked on top of that is 1,345 hours. To make up a total amount of hours per year on average of 3,529, which is a little alarming in itself for a couple different reasons. But there's also a driving factor that I'm aware of, because when we do need callback and it's not a serious incident, they don't want to come back. They need time off. On top of that, 52% of my staff, or 11 members, currently live outside of the community. So when the callback system was implemented over 40 years ago, and it was successful in how it operated for that first probably 25 years, or a little bit longer, people were able to come back immediately because it's an immediate need that we have in the community. And now, because of the high price in North Reading, people are living outside of the community, and they're not able to come back in a timely manner or at all at times. On top of that, a lot of them have young families right now with other priorities, or priorities to their family. Some have second jobs. And in that time frame, second job, or the time frame of the callback system was first developed, I'm sure that employers were a lot more willing back then to let an off-duty firefighter go back to the station to help the community. I think in this current time frame, the callback system is outdated because I don't see any or many employers doing that at all. They're worried about their own productivity and their own employees' productivity, getting things accomplished at their job. And then I think that the staff really has a better outlook on trying to have a nice or a more structured work-life balance. So all those contributing factors are affecting the system that at one time was very successful and robust, and no longer is anymore. We need to get out.
Chief, I have a question, and I didn't see it there. Sorry, Madam Chairman. In relation to the uncovered, in other words, we have some needs. We have historical needs, and we have the uncovered shifts here. So you've got a total of 3,529 total. Is it shifts, hours? Hours, okay.
Yeah.
Hours. But the unmet needs are needed hours for coverage. So actually, our needs are greater than what we're meeting now. So we're short on coverage.
We're short, yeah, this only captures, so we're never short on shifts, let's say. So when the shift change happens.
No, it's on the callback. Because of the callback.
Yeah.
In other words, when you send the ambulance out or you have a box alarm, we have certain needs, which you've identified here,
Correct.
that go unmet.
Correct.
So that our need for coverage is obviously greater than what our current workforce is capable of meeting, or they're not necessarily capable of meeting it. It's because they're choosing not to come back, choosing not to answer the box and not to answer the call. Whereas in the past it was less.
Correct, very much.
For the varying reasons. So really one of the things we need to look at is, how many hours do we need to have coverage for, and then what's our tolerance level on relying on the callback system?
Yes. I think it's hard to capture that because we never know what we're going to get from day to day as far as emergency response.
So I know, but it's,
Yeah.
there's some growth there, but it's still within some margin that you can reasonably contemplate based upon the population
Yeah.
and the needs. You have an aging population, so you're going to have more increase in the need for medical aid. So as we see, let myself be older, the needs to call are going to be there. So, okay. All right, I just wanted to, I'll get to it later. Okay.
Okay.
We're gonna try to not
Yeah.
stop you.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So as I've explained in the previous slides, the department has grown increasingly busier while our system of getting off-duty personnel back to the station has increasingly failed. This creates potential safety concerns to members of my department and the community, and there is not enough staff present to safely handle the next emergency. During prior hearings, the select board has expressed concerns when hiring additional personnel under the then current language of the contract with the North Reading firefighters. Understandable. Through collaboration and partnership between town leadership, consisting of the select board and the town administrator with the fire department, an agreement was reached in March of '22, making increased staffing of the fire department possible through the necessary changes in the collective bargaining agreement. Through the same collaborative effort, the town has agreed to move both police and fire to the North Shore Regional Emergency Communications Center for regional dispatching operations, which frees up a firefighter from dispatching responsibilities at the department and increases our response by 1 to 5 members a shift able to respond. While any additional staff that is freed up for response will help the staffing issues the department is facing, we truly need to get to 6 full-time members on each shift to have the correct amount of minimum personnel for the majority of times that the department is utilizing the ambulance callback system. As you're all aware from the beginning of my tenure as chief, my goal is to have 8 firefighters on each shift. 8 firefighters will allow the North Reading Fire Department to respond to 2 minor incidents at the same time, or to respond to 1 major incident with multiple apparatus and much safer staffing levels to mitigate the threat. Reaching a staffing level of 6 firefighters per shift is a great milestone, and it's a net progression of where the department's staffing levels truly need to be at. Safety concerns continually drive the need for increased staffing in the fire department. The department has relied on a system of calling back off-duty personnel to supplement the on-duty staff for over 40 years, and very reliably for 25 of them. Over the past 15 years, the system has eroded to a point that I now point to as failed. Not having the correct amount of personnel is an extreme safety concern of mine, which directly affects the safety of my staff and the public. Call volume has increased over the previous year, with our calls for service at 2,874. The department system of callback off-duty firefighters has continued to fail to backfill the station efficiently for multiple reasons, correlating to unsafe conditions for both the on-duty staff and the civilians whose calls for service may dictate the need. By increasing shift size with the additional staff, both an additional hire per group as well as using the fifth current firefighter, once the transition to regional is complete, the department can now handle incidents safer and respond to 2 minor incidents simultaneously, which we cannot do at this time. The last step of this lengthy process would be approval by the Finance Committee, Select Board, and Town Administrator for the 4 additional firefighter positions that I am requesting. Just as a quick comparison, and while there's a lot of data on this slide, what I've highlighted is what I'd like you to focus on, which is that of these comparable communities, of which we're looking at population, call volume, level of service, with a couple of anomalies that I'll explain, we respond out with the least amount of personnel, and that's 4. So we have a shift of staff, 1 stays at dispatch, 4 leave the building. With the departments that you see that I've listed that show let's look at Ashland, 6 and a 5. They staff to 6, they'll drop to 5, and so forth. What's really important to understand here, what you see is, you look at a community like Swampscott, which doesn't even run an ambulance, and they have an on-duty staff of 8, and their call volume is significantly less than ours. So, just a comparison for you guys to see. So as far as staffing costs go, divide these in. Sure.
All right, thank you.
So then, again, understanding the significance of this request, I want to be able to explain this a little bit better. So while the initial cost of $745,000 would need to happen up front, the annual recurring cost drops to $310,000 for the annual salaries. One-time costs, which cover PPE, training, and shift cover for that training, total $435,000 and is not recurring. Of those one-time costs, anything that's paramedic related would fall under a warrant article that we have in place, which would be covered by the ambulance revenue, and that amount is just under $85,000. And $350,000 would be covered, of those one-time costs would be covered by the fire department budget.
Excuse me, Chief, I have a question on the shift coverage for training. If we're adding additional personnel, why would we have to cover it? We don't have minimum manning in our contract. We're hiring, say, 4 new firefighters. They'll go off to training. They're not in the rotation yet. Why would we have to cover it?
It's a great question. I had to revamp the numbers a couple of times because in identifying that specifically, I had not included that originally because of that reason. The problem lies in the time frames that they become fully trained, let's say with on-the-job training that we do at the station, and checked off in the positions to become a functioning member of a group. And we can actually send them to the fire academy. So I'll use myself. I waited 15 months to go to the fire academy. At that point in time, I'd already been working on group, on shift, because I had accomplished all of my training needs or needs of the department. And I was able to function in all those positions on shift. So there is a good possibility that we won't have to use some of those training funds or coverage funds, but it's all going to depend on timing. There's a good possibility we won't have to use some paramedic training monies as well, because if they come to the department as a paramedic and we don't have to train them. But I had it included in the budget, just in case that we needed to use it.
Okay, we can discuss it later. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So in summary, safety continues to be the driving need to increase the staffing of the fire department. The department struggles to get off-duty personnel back to the station in a timely manner, if at all, and at times due to the reasons that are previously discussed. It's an unsafe condition felt by staff in the community, which is entirely preventable. Hiring 4 additional firefighters to increase shift strength to 6 enables the fire department to function more safely and efficiently due to the increase in calls for service and work away from our current public system that's failed. So I thank you for your time, and I would take any questions.
Thank you very much, Chief. Mr. Gilberto.
Just, I'm going to elaborate a little bit on a request. I've heard the chief tell, I think, a very candid description of what's going on with regard to the fire department and staffing. What doesn't come through in this conversation is the conversation that we've all been having in these budget hearings for, I think, 3 years, describing the challenges of the system here. So, for folks who are just tuning in or may just be seeing the first conversation, this has been an issue that's been in the background, referenced by the chief in previous budget presentations here at the Finance Committee and the Select Board. In fact, accounted for in the collective bargaining agreement of 2022. So, for the public who may be just tuning in or just hearing about the challenges of the staffing in the department, this is something that has been worked on for a number of fiscal years by all parties equal, actually. So I just want to make sure that's sort of established and understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Leary.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I should add that, for sure. Mr. O'Leary will add it as well, as he usually does, but I want to include the union in that too. The unions recognize the challenges and accounted for that. You agree with the town as well. So thank you.
Just in the last round of negotiations, this was talked about significantly with the union. Both parties agreed that it's a major impediment to the delivery of responsive and safe response, safety for the public, but also safety for our firefighters too. So we all recognize it and try to address it in the contract language so that we can move forward on this issue. We just have different ideas maybe as to how to approach it, how to do it, and that'll work itself out at some point. But it certainly is a challenge, and again, times are changing, thought processes are changing in relation to the ability to rely upon our current staff to respond in off hours appropriately to meet our needs. And that's what the biggest challenge has been over the last 15 years. So it's either have to hire our way out of it, or look at how we schedule our personnel and adjust the wages appropriately so that they don't find the need to have to go out and get a second job and can't respond to us or for us. So those are the challenges we face. It's real, so the numbers don't lie. Look forward to working with my colleagues and chief of the administration to see if we can come up with some solution here. To do it the most cost-effective way to ensure the safety of our firefighters and the public at large. So we have our work cut out for us.
Yeah. Just a clarification on the number of, you were indicating like 2874. Does that include the EMS and the other numbers, or is that?
It does.
It does.
That number is all inclusive.
Okay, so the 2874 is basically eight events per day on average. That's what
On average.
On average. Okay. And then when I saw the 750,000 for the 4 firefighters, I thought, oh my God, how did that end up to be a number? But you explained it, so thanks for explaining that. And again, your slides are very good explaining this. So my question is, we're incrementally, you're suggesting we went up by 4. But I'm really alarmed at the 3,500 total average hours per person. I mean, that's 67 hours a week on average.
Yeah, just under 68.
And then you have, if they have second jobs, I mean, just fatigue alone does not make me feel good at all. Now, I know some of it's they're sleeping overnight and stuff like that, but still, it's a lot of hours.
I share your concerns, Mr. Wallner, at this point. I need them there.
Yeah, I know you're going to staff.
I agree with you, that's one of my concerns. But there's no, I shouldn't say there's no way, but it would be extremely difficult to find a way to to address those concerns right now.
Yeah, no, I get it. So if, instead of, and I don't know how this looks in the math, but instead of asking for 4, if we went a lot more, let's say we went up 8, when does the tipping point occur for the OT to go down? Because the OT is a you know, an excessive amount of money. And what I'm hearing is, you know, workers are living out of town, you know, they want a quality of life. What if we went the other way and really staffed up with the attempt to reduce OT? When does the numbers start to, when does the OT numbers help fund
Sure.
the new firefighters? And I don't know the answer to that question, but I think that would be, I'd be almost looking at the other way. Is like, how far do we need to go this way to get OT to help fund the extra firefighters we need, who will work a more normal 40 hours a week or however that works?
So we actually did do that exercise over the past several years. And I think in my budget, last year, I believe I had a staff level of 8, if I remember. So at 8, callback as we know it, most of it, the daily callback would be eliminated. And at that point, that would help exactly, that would, what you're saying would occur. Now, when I say mostly eliminated, what I mean by that is that if we went mutual aid to a fire somewhere, we would still backfill that one. We would still backfill it and people that we have. But as far as, because they're gone for a certain amount of time, and we need the help of the station stuff. Now, I'm saying that ambulance coverages and the daily drivers that dictate callback at this point, by and large, would be gone.
So again, but I'd be, so
But over time to represent what's portion of the salary?
So I'd have to go back with those numbers, but it actually starts, so I'm not sure if the town administrator is going to this point, but it actually starts with 6. So getting up to the staffing level of 6, we reduce some of the reasons why we have box alarms, or we would not be calling back at the radio station. On top of that, we wouldn't be hiring for the first ambulance coverage as well. So that's significant right there. And that starts at what my request is at 6. And that helps us start with that point.
well, as an academic exercise, if nothing else, it'd be really interesting to see, well, if I go up by 4, what does that look like? The balance between the two. If I go up by 6 or 8 or however many more, you know, what does that OT budget do to help fund the regular base salaries for these people?
So I actually have those numbers.
I would personally like to see that. I would assume the finance would as well. Because if you're really saying if I go up to 8 or 10, but my budget is relatively lower because OT isn't necessary as much time, that would be more attractive. Assume we have room in the fire station. That's another different issue, you know. Anyways, I mean, just as a, you know, it just be as an academic exercise, it'd be interesting to see that, if that makes any sense at all. Because it seems, again, 3,500 hours, just, you know, talk about a safety issue. That to me sounds like a real big safety issue.
Yes.
Mr. Bavaro, do you still have your thought before you got interrupted?
The chief addressed
Okay.
some of the thought, as I was jumping out of my skin.
Yeah.
To speak to it, and we've actually reached agreement with the union, you know, for that provision at 6 firefighters going out the door, to allow that savings to occur. That savings is not reflected in your budget request at this point in time, because we've talked, the 3 of us, that, you know, we know what that might be, but we need to have that full staffing to be able to actually account for it. And the lead up time to getting staff into those positions is fairly lengthy. Keep in mind, the 4 that he's requesting only gets us to 5 people out the door. We're relying on the transition to the regional dispatch, which is still a year and a half away, to get to the 6th person. So we wouldn't see any real financial impact until fiscal year 2026, whatever we see. To the round number math, I'm reaching way back in my memory, and at the risk of not being totally accurate. When we were talking about adding, to going to 8 firefighters out the door, this goes back to 2018, I think, fiscal year 2018, so the numbers are a bit dated. It was roughly $1.2 million to save about $600,000 a year time. So
That's accurate.
a rough proportion. So we're right now talking about basically spending $350,000 to save a much smaller, not proportionally, but smaller than that. Thank you, Patrick.
All right, well, hopefully you understand my point. Be interested to see the numbers, refresh numbers.
I have to update those numbers, but it is an exercise that we've done.
Great, thank you.
So this might be redundant, but I just need to wrap it around in my head. So Chief Zimmerman talked about retirements, and so he had a lesser budget because of the retirements, because the new hires are not making what the retirees make. So you're talking about 2 more retirements coming up.
I am.
So is that reflected in this?
It is not yet, no, it is not. Well, actually, I'm sorry. No, it is not, because that date can still move. So it's not reflected.
So there could be a savings when that happens?
Correct.
All right. I just,
Madam Chair,
yes.
Finance Directors.
Oh,
Got some
sorry,
clarification.
Lori.
Actually, there is a decrease, there would have been a decrease for this year had he not been asking for the positions.
Okay,
The salary was.
so that makes up
Salary.
for that difference.
Yes.
And similarly, that contract is also unsettled for the upcoming fiscal year. So you would have seen a lowering.
Okay. So, yeah, so that's what I'll have to work itself out. All right. And then to on-call. So as I understood it, there are on-call firefighters that don't work in the department, that just come in if they're needed,
Correct.
right? So are you saying that we don't really have that anymore, or they're not responding the way they used to?
So, I think. so
I'm
what
not talking about the employed firefighters, I'm talking about
The call fighter.
the call
The call
firefighters.
The call department does come back and work, so they do respond back. They have filled some of those station coverages that I talked about earlier. They are included in the box alarm numbers of
Yeah.
people coming back. They work, they're paid part-time, and they backfill shifts as well. So they do work, and they are reflected in the numbers that I've given.
Yeah.
They are. We have 5.
And I'm just curious about that door. So it doesn't get damaged when you,
So a little bit of damage occurs, however, they have consumables in there. So in the way of forcing that door, it's locked, for lack of a better way, with pieces of wood that get replaced.
oh, okay.
So that being obviously the weaker part, that gives way. But what happens is the firefighters get to learn the technique, become more efficient at the technique. So when they actually apply it to a real metal door in the real world, you probably use a little more strength, but the technique is really what we're trying to drive home. And there's no way to practice that unless we were fortunate enough to have an abandoned building, which I know we don't want, but that allows us to damage doors, And this would be a great tool to have in the department. Shift personnel can go down there and practice daily. And again, it can be integrated into department drills and actually brought out to a house too, because while it's almost 800 pounds, it's fairly easy to disassemble and reassemble. And keep it on wheels downstairs so we can move it around as needed. So, yeah.
I think that's all I had. We had an additional finance committee member come in.
Dan, that's you.
We just wanted you to introduce yourself.
Oh, Dan Pulver, Finance Committee.
We did an introduction earlier.
Thanks, Dan. Anybody from the finance committee like to ask questions, Gabby?
Yeah, through you to the chief. I realize that you've experienced increased calls. Are some of these an increase in mutual aid calls?
They are.
And do you have any idea roughly what percentage of increased mutual aids?
I do.
I don't need a number, but I mean...
Yeah, so we had a small increase in and I'm going to use ambulances because the fire calls are far less of a driver.
Because what?
The fire responses, fire mutual aid responses are far less of a driver for the increase. The increase is basically due to ambulance calls. So we had a 16% increase in calls to Reading, between 23 and 22. So from 122 to 142. Our largest increase happened with the town of Wilmington, which was a increase of 39 to 58. Excuse me. I have the resource right here, so I'll just keep it forward. $38 to 87 for the town of Wilmington over the past year. So in recognizing that and speaking to the chief and I knew most of this already, but I wanted to confirm. His second ambulance had been out of service quite a bit. They also experienced an increase in calls for service as well. That resulted in us going over there far more than in past years.
And fire mutual aid?
Fire mutual aid is relatively the same. So no, that wasn't a driving factor in the increase in these mutual aid calls.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else in the comment?
Can you go to the slide that compares the different communities? So it looks like Middleton is using a different staffing model. It's an outlier up there compared to the others. Have you looked at whether a full-time model that's supplemented with part-time would work in North Reading and what the pros and cons might be?
That would be negotiable with the labor union.
Okay.
And right now, all fire department work goes to the labor union employees first. So what happens in Middleton is they don't have that arrangement, and they actually fill or try to fill some of their shift staff with both 2 part-time and I believe 2 full-time members. And they also have no provision to hold over people, so their numbers, their on-shift staffing can be significantly decreased. We have an agreement and we have a holdover policy so that we have a minimum of 5 on every shift, whether they take it voluntarily or not. If it goes through the permanent members of the department first and the labor union, and no members voluntarily take it, it gets offered to the part-time and to the call firefighters, and then if they take it and fill a shift, that's fine. If nobody takes it, then one of the members of the union is forced to stay or held over for that shift. So that's how that is all worked.
There's also a big difference in the population.
There is.
Anything else, Amanda?
No, thank you.
Anyone else?
Do we know that the call volumes on this list are all, our call volume is based on a bunch of different calls, right? Mutual aid, callback, blah, blah, blah. Do we know actually how some of these other communities' call volume is defined? Is it the exact same, or is it up to whatever number they supply and we're not 100% sure?
No, it's the same.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll start with the finance committee. Mr. O'Leary?
Just in relation to the mutual aid. So how many mutual aid calls do we have? Again, that forces us to backfill also.
It does.
So how many mutual aid calls do we have? And then conversely, how often do we call that mutual aid?
So we went out approximately 330 times in mutual aid responses, and we call back, or we in return get approximately half of that. And again, you know, as we've discussed in the past, Reading is a driving force there, and just recently Wilmington. I expect Wilmington numbers to go down, and then our total mutual aid ambulance responses to go down somewhat because of that. So that's the relationship there. So we do have the need to backfill for that, but we also bill for those calls too. So It's a pro and a con at the same time.
But as far as the shifts that go unfilled, or the callbacks that go unfilled, that was one of the
Yes.
slides. So, you know, for the 151 shifts that were unfilled, uncovered, and you don't know, it's a timing issue as to whether or not it involved mutual aid or not.
Correct.
But, you know, 330 call-outs,
Yeah.
so 330 need to be filled. And, but we still have a gap here as far as partial coverage, full coverage. So we get the mutual aid, and then again, it's vital. You know, we provide it, and then we have the ability to call on our neighbors to assist us too. That's obviously part of the driving force here too. As far as our ability to get our own personnel to come back in and cover the shift when we go out on mutual aid. And I know that was a pet peeve of the former member of the board here for a long time, as far as just we get the mutual aid and take care of ourselves. Didn't necessarily agree with it, but I understood it. So, but I think that's important for us to understand too. That, you know, we're providing twice as much as we receive. I guess that's a good thing because we have adequate staff to at least safely respond.
And so the board's aware also. We will, and all departments will give out their first ambulance for mutual aid. When we backfill the station now, and now our primary ambulance is out, we don't send the second ambulance out the majority of times that it's filled. We will not send that out mutual aid unless there's something catastrophic. To simplify it, something catastrophic going on in another community. So that is reserved for North Reading residents. And I just want to be clear that you guys, everybody here is aware of that because it's important. Our primary ambulance, yes, we'll send out mutual aid. The secondary ambulance, unless, again, there's something catastrophic going on, a mass casualty incident, something completely unforeseen that has overwhelmed and depleted the community. At that point, in that extenuating circumstance, I will send it out. But it's got to meet that level. Other than that, it's reserved for North Reading residents.
That's good to know.
One last question for you. Back on the previous slide, you don't have to go, but Winchester and Sudbury, 12.9, 10 something. What's going on there? Why are they so high?
That's Winchester's staffing model. So they'll staff, full staff for 9 is 12. They'll drop to 9 before they backfill with overtime. And 9 is their minimum. Sudbury, same thing. They'll staff up, fully staffed is 10. 2 people take vacation, they'll run with 8. If another person takes vacation, at that point, that will drive an overtime shift. It's truly a well-staffed fire department, both of them, because they can handle a first alarm assignment almost by themselves. In Winchester's case, when they're fully staffed by themselves. In Sudbury, I'd say at full staff, pretty much. We could send 4 people in an engine, and 2 in the ladder truck, or 3 and 3, and send 1 in command unit to start to understand and mitigate the scene or give quarters rather. So they're truly well-staffed departments.
And their population's higher too.
Yeah, a little bit. It'd be interesting to add on their total budget onto the slide actually for these communities.
Yeah, I can reach out to them to find out. So
Yeah, that'd be
we have
interesting.
a better discussion and understanding them.
Just to see, how much extra it costs for them to do that.
So just so you know, 8 is where I ultimately want to get. I know that's a gigantic number that we have to talk about. Work towards, but that's part of the process, and that's why being able to handle things without reliance on other mutual aid communities who are experiencing, especially the smaller ones, the same things that we are. They're in the same boat by and large. So Linfield, Middleton, the bigger departments like Reading, North Andover, and Wilmington, they have larger on-duty staff, so they can provide a little bit more robust mutual aid at times.
Yeah.
But we're responding.
Ambulance-wise.
Ambulance-wise.
Mrs. Hurley is better.
Yeah, I think we also have to look at the geography that's involved. Andover is the largest town in Essex County geographically, whereby Winchester's itty bitty. So, I mean, places like Sharon and Sudbury have a much larger field to cover than North Reading, for example. It is, however, interesting to note that despite the fact Winchester has about 25% more people than North Reading from a population standpoint, their call volume is not that much greater. It would be interesting to see what the call volume per capita is to some degree. But I think we have to be really careful about comparing our numbers to a town that's much bigger geographically. And I'm not saying we don't need additional staff.
Well, I haven't done that here with Andover because I agree with you. They have multiple stations and multiple
Right.
locations. But using your example of Winchester, who has a much smaller footprint, but
Right.
also staffs up to 12 people.
Right.
At full staff. I mean, everything that the fire department does is very manpower and labor intensive. Everything. So moving a simple, one of our regular size hose lines through a regular house requires 2 to 3 people to do the mission. You start getting wrapped around staircases and everything ties that hose up. Just to use a very basic example. So while those events don't occur all the time, when they do, it's extreme. It's very important that we get or have the right amount of people to mitigate that.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that we don't need new firefighters. I'm just suggesting that all communities function differently, they staff differently, they have a different geography, and so it's really a little hard to do a direct comparison. But I had another question, actually, and that was concerning mutual aid and Reading. I know that Reading for years has been a driver of our mutual aid. And I also recall that about a year or so ago, it was suggested that Reading would be making some changes so that perhaps their requests for mutual aid might decrease. Has that actually occurred?
That has not occurred. So I've spoken to the chief multiple times, and that's where I got that information from. For whatever reason, it still hasn't occurred, and they keep their second ambulance stripped and as a spare. They don't keep it in a backup status like we do, where it's our backup ambulance, our second ambulance, goes out quite often. And Reading, for whatever reason, chooses not to do that, and I don't think it's appropriate, but that's my opinion.
Thank you.
All set? Ms. Ray?
Just, could you explain, Chief, again, when the apparatus goes, not the ambulance, but apparatus goes out with our staff, kind of staffing level, how that works, and again, if there's a need for a box alarm, timing-wise, how is our response for those types of incidences? But right now, you get full people you can send out.
Correct.
Send an engine out, at least 2.
So are you saying if we don't backfill the station?
No, how do we operate it?
Oh, okay. So if we get a call for a fire alarm activation at my house, the duty crew with all 4 people go out to the fire engine. If we get a call for a medical aid at my house, 2 people go in the fire engine and 2 people go in the ambulance. The majority of time that we have a medical aid, the 2 people in the ambulance transport are the only ones that transport to the hospital. However, it's not uncommon for a 3rd person to have to go as well. It just depends on the complexity of the medical that we're dealing with. So if it's, they have to do some complicated life-saving maneuvers or whatever the case may be, they may request a second paramedic in the back, in which case the driver of the engine would move over and drive the ambulance and put 2 paramedics in the back of the ambulance, thus sending 3 people out of town to the hospital, and the captain would drive the engine back to the station. In those circumstances, we're filling for what left town. So if it's a 2-man call at left town, we try to backfill the 2. And if it's 3, because the complexity demanded it, then we try to backfill 3. You're welcome. Just one.
Since we were bringing up about ambulances, my understanding is ambulances make us money, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so that's not a bad thing that we have high volume, and that's actually a good thing. Am I right when I say that?
Exactly. And that's where I was identifying earlier. The mutual aid, it's a pro and a con. We bill for all of those calls, so we're receiving that revenue in. To Mr. O'Leary's point, it certainly taxes the callback system as well. It drives that system even further. You know, can we live without it? No, we can't, because we depend on it. Because none of the departments around, I shouldn't say none, but most of the departments around us aren't staffed the way, our small departments are staffed similar to us, let's say. So we depend on one another for mutual aid.
But the ambulance even covers the cost of the callback. Is
It
that
does.
right?
It does.
If they come back.
If they come in.
If they come back. The thing is, we still need the bodies.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have the capacity to meet our needs, whether it be mutual aid, whether it be our own needs, and then add mutual aid onto it, it exacerbates the situation as far as the ability to backfill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else? Finance? All set? Mr. Gilberto, you?
I am, thank you, Chief. Madam Chair, through you, I believe the Finance Committee wanted some time to deliberate over an hour. So we want to take a brief recess once we're done here.
Okay.
It's 2 minutes.
2 minutes. I'll give you 3 minutes.
You're the best.
after our brief recess, we had another member of the Finance Committee join us. If you could introduce yourself.
Hi, Tim Sutherland, Finance Committee.
Okay, thank you, Tim. And welcome. And we are going to start to
DPW Director Joe Parisi is here. He will review the request for all of the divisions within the DPW, including water.
Including water.
And fuel, right? Fuel and sanitation.
Correct.
welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity. So the Department of Public Works FY 2025 operating budget. So a little listing of the departments. So we said the sanitation, fuel, administration, engineering, road and streets, snow and ice, street lighting, tree care, machinery maintenance, cemetery, town buildings, stormwater, and water. Little budget preview. Sanitation has gone up 18,800, 1.3%, mainly due to the contractual increases for collections and disposal of solid waste. Fuel budget is actually down by 27,184, and that's mainly due to lesser price increases than we got from prior years. So I think we're overestimating the cost per gallon, so bringing that down to what we see happening in the market now. I think there's also maybe some efficiencies in the vehicles that we have as far as fuel consumption.
Okay.
DPW budget overall, $3,361,013, an increase of $296,355 on that. Water operations budget is an increase of $70,670. Also under the water enterprise, there's some indirect costs that went up 2.5%, and water debt service went up 27%. So the FY 25 budget requests of significance includes increases in salary due to contractual obligations, the fuel changes that I spoke about, stormwater professional services increase, full culvert investigation efforts, town building contract services increases and utility increases, town building and road and street general supply cost increases, miscellaneous small capital improvement increases, and water enterprise increases for purchase of water from Andover and that service. So the sanitation budget, last year, it was $1,426,000 going up to $1,445,000. Overall increase of $18,989. There's some slight increase in personnel costs, but the increases in solid waste collections and disposal is really driving that price increase.
How long's the contract been for?
Sure, yes.
How long are we locked in for the contract?
So our contract for disposal is actually up to June 30th. So we've been negotiating with 7 other towns, I believe, and so we've got a price for a new contract for
3 years. And the collection contract is 3 more years on it?
I think it's got at least 2.
Just to reiterate, if we can just hold our questions if we can, so we can just make this a
But
smooth
if we could do it by section, it would be good, rather than...
Okay, that's fine, yeah, so at the end of,
Like the sanitation?
right, because what do you
Yes.
have, 3 different,
What's that?
we have 3 different categories here?
Yes, mainly, yeah. I mean, when we get into the operations, there's a number of them. But sanitation in itself, it's certainly a question if you have on that. That's now.
So just let me know when you're done
Sure.
with a segment, and then I can refer to the finance, and then we can move on to the next one.
Okay. So we'll move on. So here's,
So you're done with sanitation, did finance have any questions on that?
fuel vehicle pool. So the FY '24 budget, $277,684, going up slightly, down slightly to $250,500. So, I'll stop here. Any other questions on the vehicle section?
Actually, I'm gonna go back to sanitation.
Sure.
Is that calculated anywhere in here?
I don't know.
I know
Snow is definitely.
they were paid for in our last fiscal year. And then, are we getting any? I'm noticing driving around town, I'm not seeing them. I'm seeing the regular bags, I'm seeing the extra stuff. I'm not, personally, I've kind of been looking and I'm not seeing them.
There are bag sales. We have revenues. I don't know if you can tell us what that is.
To date for 24 was $7,500. I just looked the other day because I was looking for something.
How much was it? How much was it?
7,500.
But I think since the start, my recollection is correct, I think we did about $15,000 for a 12-month period.
All right, and what did they initially cost us to supply?
The bags?
Remember? Yeah.
So we bought about $50,000 worth of bags. So that will last us quite some time.
Okay. So we're up to about 20-ish thousand that we've gotten back.
Yeah, I think the use has been, they're overflow bags. So, when you have more than 2 barrels, that's when you'll see them out. I mean, I see them just my route coming in, I do see them. And I know that they're being sold. And I know that they're...
my neighborhood that's slacking.
So, whether you see more trash than the 2 barrels and no bags being used, I don't know, but they've been rejecting, bags or overflow trash.
If I could make a recommendation as to Walner to, as you were liaison to the, it's not recycling. Sustainability. To maybe try to market that a little more and get that out there.
Well, there's potential changes coming too, because they're proposing to go to a whole new system where there'd be no people picking up trash. It'd be like a forklift.
Yeah, that's inevitable. If most communities are doing that now.
Yeah.
What do they call the totes?
Yeah, totes. Right. Yeah, I've had some preliminary discussions with Republic that that's their preferred method.
Yeah.
So we'll see, it may be into a new contract with them, but we'll see how that operation goes. Yeah, right here.
Mrs. Irvin?
I was just going to suggest that because the overflow bags are sold, what, is it a dozen at a time or 10 at a time?
How many are there at a time?
10 bags. 10 bags in a row.
So I think we have to be very careful about looking at the figure of whatever it is for bags, because that's bags sold, not bags used, and you have to buy 10 at a time. I've seen one bag out in the last year. And I don't live in your neighborhood.
Mr. O'Leary?
In this particular area, is there something we should be cognizant of, a significant increase in cost, 2 years down the road, that we should be aware of now in this discussion, that we should be factoring in somehow, we have this year's budget, but also just be cognizant of, we have to buy these totes and provide the community, you're talking $1 million.
You're correct in that there would be a cost for converting to totes.
It's like $1 million.
Significant cost, correct.
Yeah.
So, with all the other pressures that we have, we're not that far away from requiring significant expenditure
Yeah.
and finding the funds to do so somehow, some way, or whether we're going to increase the trash fee in order to cover those costs over a period of time, we just provide them, or we either buy them, or we're going to buy them and get them. So I think as we're going through these things, like going forward, the other budgets, if there are things that are being forecasted out
Yeah.
in years 2 and 3 or beyond, we should throw that into the equation so that we're going to overthink it rather than just time-specific one fiscal year.
Yeah, and of course, yeah, because I'm pretty sure that when we renew our contract, it's what they're gonna want.
We're already talking about multi-fiscal year.
But I mean, in this particular area, we know, the contracts are expiring, so if there's any increased costs, labor costs just for the operators who are bidding on the contracts, it's going to be significantly higher. And then if there's going to be additional equipment needs or supply needs. So to Abby's point, on the recycle, on the excess bags, making people buy 10 of them, we need 1 or 2
Yeah, we might
per
want to
week.
rethink that.
And I don't know if there's another way, we're not going to be thinking about it.
That was a hard no.
I know. No, that's a fine number. You put it in your cubby and they're, if you go through it in 5 months, 6 months, I mean, that's
What's it, 25 bucks?
good.
How much, $25?
$25. Right. Yeah. Otherwise, you run out of bags and now you gotta go make another trip to the store to go get a roll on the day of trash, so good to have, I buy 2 rolls of 5 because of that in Gloucester. So,
Mrs. Harper has.
Yes, I was interested if the collection were to move to mechanized totes, do we see a potential decrease, not necessarily from today's prices, in the collection of solid waste? In other words, is it less expensive if we use totes as opposed to if we use yellow bags or plastic pails or whatever?
I really couldn't hear what you said.
Is it cheaper to have a solid waste contract with totes as opposed to put it out in anything you have?
I'm not sure we're gonna have a choice.
Yeah, I don't have an answer.
I'm not
for that.
sure we're gonna have a choice when we.
Well,
Contract,
assuming we,
because
yes, but, so even if we don't have a choice, does it end up being less of an increase than it might have been? In other words, is there any savings emotionally or otherwise, so to speak?
Well, do they have to have less manning of the?
So there is
trucks?
some labor savings, that's their motivation. So
Yeah.
whether that, you would hope that that'd be passed on the
Yeah.
price we could get.
Okay.
And also, offset the investment we'd have to make in buying the totes in the first place.
I was just going to add,
Okay.
my experience is that there will be an incentive to go with something that's automated, but there will be an offsetting cost increase in having to purchase the totals. The big variable is the labor market right now, their ability to staff,
Right.
their equipment. They acquired a collection company that did not have automated equipment that they're going to have to replace. I know they have some initiative underway, so at best it's going to be, we'll see less of an increase, is my thinking. And at worst is there may be a wash, there may not be any.
Yeah.
There may not be any savings. So, but that all remains to be seen. We're in very preliminary discussions with it. The real flashpoint is the end of the contract, which was discharged is confirmed is fiscal year 2026. So it ends June 30th, 2026. So we'll be in those conversations soon. We're already in them, but they're going to increase. Thank you.
I should have never let you move on because you do love to talk trash. Any more on the sanitation from the finance or from Michael? Okay, thank you.
And I think we already touched on this. There's no questions. All right, so now we're getting into the DPW operation. So administration, so FY24 budget of $199,269, going up slightly by $7,477. Contractual obligations, both purchase services and purchase supplies is level funded. So there is I think on the budget copy you have, a mistake where lease of rentals is up $8,000. That should be reduced to 0. the money for, that was for cell phones. And that line item, cell phone line item there is funded property for cell phones.
By 8,000?
Right. Engineering division. So the FY24 budget 84,347, actually down slightly, $290. So that's in personal service, although the line items are level funded. Road and street, FY24 budget, $661,849. Slightly, $684,771. The overall increase is $22,922. We have some increase in personal services, increase in purchase of services, level funded purchase of supplies, and level funded other charges and expenses. There's an increase in miscellaneous capital of $7,500. There is updating of power tools and purchase of a line painting machine.
Mr. O'Leary?
So this is maintenance of our roads, streets and roads?
Correct.
And how, I know you do a survey of the roads regularly. How are the conditions of the roads year over year? Are we getting worse? Are we keeping pace? Are we falling behind?
Well, the past few years, we've actually had pretty good funding. In addition to Chapter 90, we've had pretty good funding in our local appropriations for roadways. I think that we've done some significant neighborhood work. And if we continue on that path, we certainly will maintain, we'll drop in our conditions, but there are some roadways that are low in our condition factor that we're trying to get to in this season coming. May not be a big neighborhood, but it's individual streets here and there that have the lowest factors on our list of street assessments. I think we're making progress.
And I know you have basically each street.
Right, we do.
Put it on my side. Chip away at it.
Right. We do want to do another assessment take another survey of all the roads and recalibrate, if you will, the conditions.
I thought we gave them money for that.
But I think just looking around, we've hit it a couple of different ways. One, the field crew is out there doing some significant patchwork of roads that blow apart in the winter. And I think that's helping keep the level of potholes down during the winter seasons, and gives us a chance to really utilize the money we are getting for entire neighborhood or roadway reconstruction or mill and overlay. I was talking to the highway foreman the other day, and he said, this winter's been, it's been mild, but still, because of the work that they've been doing to repair those problem areas, the calls on potholes and things like that are lessened, which is great. Not line painting, but crack sealing also, keeps the roads together until you can get to them, at some point in time, a total reconstruction or middle and overlay. So we're doing that each and every year to just keep on top of the roadway conditions, but, it does take significant money to do total curb resurfacing. And we've been fortunate for the past few years, and hope to have that funding.
And how many miles of road do we maintain?
I don't know that it's 79. You got it? 78, 79 miles.
Could be wrong. It's right around
90. No, it's not 90.
Thank you.
So snow and ice, last year we had expenditures of $568,125. The budget is level funded at $175,000. The expenditure to date is $367,813. Some figures on the snow events, so 21.5 inches of total snowfall to date. Year to date, we had 14 events, 11 road salting storm events, and 3 plowing storm events. The FY 25 budget, $175,000.
I know there's a reason for this, but I can't remember. Why do we underfund snow and ice if we know it's usually higher? You just think.
So snow and ice is one of the limited areas where we can spend the appropriation into a deficit. So we can spend more money than we actually got approval for a town meeting of state law. Our ability to do that is contingent on whether or not we have matched the prior year's appropriation, which is the $175,000 that you see. So increasing this dollar amount then obligates us to maintain that increased number in the future year. We have opted for a different strategy where when you look at the larger revenue and expense plan, we budget for that deficit each year and we are able to carry it into the next year and fund it in that way. So we do have a mechanism to fund it, it just doesn't show up directly in the appropriation. In many years, we don't actually carry it, we use free cash for prior year to pay it down. So it is getting covered, it is being accounted for as an expense, and we are increasing what we accounted for based on the increased cost, but it doesn't show up in the appropriation.
It's just being shifted to period. Okay, thank you.
So if we appropriated, $500,000, we have to maintain that $500,000
Right.
even though you don't use it. So you're better off under budgeting, go into a deficit situation even though you've got accounted for it somewhere else.
Got it.
Because otherwise we have to maintain that other level.
Okay, got
And my
it.
practice is not uncommon from town to town. So it is-
I just always forget the answer to that question. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Street lighting, FY24 budget, $93,356, and that is level funded. Tree care. So last year, this current year, FY24, $45,000 for basically contract services. In the FY25 budget, we're looking for the creation of a two-man division, if you will, to increase the service level and be able to get on top of the issues that are prevalent in the town with trees dying, being pruned. The two-man crew would be $120,765 cost. There's also a cost for $10,000, an increase for $10,000 based on prior year workload. For contract services, we also have a bucket truck that's 26 years old and continues to have some major breakdowns, which requires additional contract services on jobs we could probably do ourselves with the bucket truck. Contract services also requires the use of, in some instances, a crane that we have to boom out trees that are a little bit deep into the tree line. Purchase supplies is level funded.
So you're looking for 2 full-time
That is correct.
employees for that?
That is correct. That are trained and qualified in tree care.
So that's all they would do?
They would do that predominantly as their job, but I think Chris certainly would use them during winter time, and if there's any other needs that come up, they can be pulled for that.
So they would need to have background and other things, not just...
Trained and licensed, and have some other skills.
Mr. Leary?
No, I just know what's happening in my yard, with the changes in weather. I mean, more and more tree damage. Actually, a lot of trees removed too, but there's still a significant amount of tree damage. Experiencing that, I assume, town-wide. And I know RMLD assists significantly along the roadways, but...
With power lines.
With power lines. But are we seeing increased calls for tree
We are, I think
removal
we
and
are.
tree repairs and, not repairs, but debris removal and things of that nature, trimming? I mean, I just know what's happening in my yard.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah, we get multiple calls.
yeah, Amy is saying that we get multiple calls on trees.
And then we have to reach out to Chris and Dan, and they have to go out and determine where the tree is and the safety condition of the tree before, and then we have to get back to the resident and.
Or they have to hire out?
Sometimes we have to hire out because a lot of times they're so big that we
Yeah.
can't handle.
I mean,
Just this past fall, there were 4 trees just on the Bishop's Way that came down in a microburst, and there were several more on Lindor. That must have been a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're seeing more frequent high wind, high raining storms, and it's resulting in more trees down. We see it all the time.
Yeah, I think that when we hear it in the news, we hear it in the state budgetary process, the federal level as far as disaster funds that are needed, just because of the changing climate. So it's something we have to plan on funding to meet the needs. Otherwise, it's an emergency situation as opposed to being prepared for it.
Right, I mean, that's what it is, it's reactionary right now, and that's all we can do. But, we want to get ahead of that and increase the service level and be able to respond quicker.
Have we looked into grants for that? To help with that
Granting
funding?
for funding personnel.
For that, I mean, like I said, I think that could maybe fall under climate change or, something. I think it would be worth investigating.
There are hazard mitigation grant programs at the state level that we've traditionally looked at. I don't know whether we've seen this type of work as an eligible cost or not, but we can certainly look further into that.
Have you weighed the option of just subbing this out or putting this to bid from one of the many services that we have in town, rather than adding staff?
That's what we do now.
That's what we're doing now? Okay.
It's a combination right now. It's work being done by the highway department, the emergency stuff that we can handle in-house, and then anything that we can't handle based on the size of the tree or the location, that would be subbed out. But I would say with the majority of the work gets done in-house by the highway department.
Yeah, 2 questions. Has RMLD been a good partner in taking care of the trees? I mean, I know I personally called about a tree that was dead over their lines and said, I think you ought to come take care of this, and they absolutely refused.
Oh, really?
So was RMLD, have they been good partners, and you bring to their attention preventively? Do they come out and help?
They should. I'll pass it on.
Yeah, no, they do, but it's only when it involves wires. If it's close proximity to wires, they've typically been a very good partner. There's plenty of times when we call them, and if it's something that's close to wires, they'll come out and take care of. But we also have the whole other side of the street on every road that doesn't have wires. That
of course. And then for the other trees, what is the line between town and personal property? If somebody has a tree on their property and it falls or comes down, where's the line as far as the town obligation versus personal property owners?
Sure. So if it's a privately owned tree and it falls on privately owned property, it's 100% on the resident. If it's a privately owned tree and it falls into the street, depending on the location and the size of the tree, there have been times where we've placed it back on private property. Anything that falls in the street, typically we remove. Sidewalk. Correct.
Thank you.
But basically, private trees are the owner's responsibility. I mean, I had a huge tree once that was cracked and was gonna fall on, take out everything in Winchester. And Tough Noogies, the only thing they did was say they wouldn't charge me for police officers to stand guard while the cherry picker came in and took out the tree. It was a mess, and I reported it. But my question is, you say the purchase services increased by 10%. By 10,000. 10,000 of what? And then my second question is, grants are a nice idea, but you can't really fund reoccurring salary costs with a grant.
So the $10,000 is an increase mainly on contract services for the labor and equipment.
No,
to
I mean
out
the dollar
trees.
amount.
Was that?
$10,000 of $150,000 last year, or what was the $10,000?
In addition to how much?
Right, what was it last year?
Yeah.
It was 40,000.
40?
40,000 going to 50,000.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
If you did hire the two heads, how many miles of the roads do you think you could get ahead of in any given fiscal year? With what, 78 miles? So if we have two dedicated bodies going around town all year, how many miles could we do every year?
Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
That's kind of a tough question. But, so we have a lot of neighborhoods in town that were built between the 80s and the 90s that have the trees and the grass strip. We've since CPC, when building new neighborhoods, now those trees have been moved out just because it's not a good spot for them. But right now,
Because you guys have to clean them up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Every time the wind blows.
Yeah, plus, as they grow, the roots push up the sidewalks, and
Right.
the sidewalks are useless, right?
Right. So right now, the highway department, when we're able to do preventative maintenance, which takes away from jobs the highway department typically does, we try to go out and we trim those street trees. That would be something that would be completely on this two-man division, which would allow the highway department to focus on more of the roads and sidewalks and drains. So that would be something that we would look to right off the bat, invest a lot more time in to prevent those trees from getting so big that they break and fall every time the wind blows. And then after that, all of the requests that we get from residents and emergency trees that come down, these two people would be designated to that. So just to touch base quick too on the $10,000 for purchase services. We anticipate that if we were to hire two people, we would cut down on how many times that we need to hire an outside contractor to come in. But like Joe had said, there's a significant amount of work that no matter how big our tree department gets, we will never buy $1 million crane to be able to do our own crane work. So there still will always need to be purchase services budget for that crane work, and the cost of crane work continues to go up. So that's why that we're trying to get some people to do a lot of the preventative maintenance work, but there will always be a need to hire a contractor for the bigger stuff.
So despite the fact that you have $120,765 in your budget for two new hires, you, in addition to that, have $50,000 in purchase services. Am I correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so probably it would be better to have that number instead of the 10,000, because it would actually be 50,000. You're saying a $10,000 increase?
In a $40,000 line item from 40 to 50,000, 10,000 increase.
Does the 12765 include all the benefits, et cetera, that come with a hire? And in addition to that, you also have a capital request for a new bucket truck, which is not free. So the total cost, in a sort of more global sense, of tree trimming is probably well over 200,000. Just saying. Not complaining, just saying.
There's a lot of trees in town.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Just to clarify, the DPW can correct me if I have this wrong, but the DPW request for a bucket truck is a need regardless of whether or not we do staffing.
That's correct.
The vehicle that has failed mid-project at least once in the past year that I know of. We were able to sort of skate, luckily, through something that was available in town to help us to do it. But it's a significant need for a community with the canopy that we have. The close entanglement of the trees, the wires, and the roads. This isn't an urban environment, but we have a lot of trees and they're very close to roads and property. What we haven't talked about, and Chris has dealt with in the past, is the number of parcels that we own that have trees on them that are not roadways, for which we have some level of responsibility. So it's a significant issue with this, but the bucket truck need is expensive. We all know very expensive. But it is a once in 15 or 20 year cost, as I understand it. That's necessary regardless of whether we do the staffing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just real quick too, just speaking with Reading Light, so they currently have a contract with Mayor Tree where they have 2 tree trucks with 4 guys that go out and do preventive maintenance in the 4 towns that they service. Their current contract is $1.3 million a year for those 2 crews. They're in the process of looking to bring that in-house to buy their own trucks and to hire their own tree crew. So it's, when you look at $120,000 a year plus a $300,000 tree truck divided over a 15-20 year career, you break that number down to a couple $100,000 a year, opposed to the 1.3 that Reading Light's paying right now. There's quite a quite a savings to bring it in-house.
Mr. O'Leary?
If we can't afford to buy into this tree care budget, can we anticipate you coming back looking for more contracted services funding in order to meet the needs? Because this is, you gotta spend it anyway. It's not one way or the other. And again, we have a need to keep up with what the demand is. If we can't do it in-house, can we anticipate you coming back with a modified budget with an increase in contract services?
The service level right now is basically reactionary, responding to issues. So if additional funding cannot be added to the budget to get to more of a maintenance level, then I think we may have to.
Yeah, I'm just trying to anticipate,
Yeah.
we have a,
We probably need to see
we have a
that.
need to do some, to do maintenance rather than reactionary. And we do it one of two ways. We either hire or contract out. And contracting out is going to get you less than what you have when you have people on staff, but at least it somewhat eats into the need to maintain some
Yeah.
tree care. So that's all. I just want to know, you're looking for 120 plus whatever. Can we anticipate coming back for $50,000 more in contract services? Half of what you're looking for here, just to get into the maintenance of things rather than reactionary mode.
Yeah,
Or not this year?
compare
Or are you
it
just
to
going to say, nope, we'll just pass it off to another year, kick it down the road?
I mean, I'd rather get ahead of the issue than not. I'd rather make sure that the roads are safe, that every storm we're not going to have potentially a tree falling in the road. And I think there's a number of trees out there that, we could address right now. The funding is there.
I do agree, though, that it would be to our benefit to see, I know it's hard to say because it's reactionary, but if you could get us a close number of what it would be if you did have to do another reactionary, I mean, if the number comes kind of close, then it makes sense, I think, to do that. So.
But again, having staff does two things. It allows you to maintain, keep ahead of it, but also react to situations and reduce the need for contract services.
And add to our plow drivers in the winter,
Yeah.
which is a need.
Maybe, if it snows.
I mean, we've had trees come down in the middle of snowstorms. I mean,
Sure.
So, you have those guys out there plowing, and they're going to be able to react to trees down.
Mr. Walton?
I haven't just taken down some trees on my land. It's basically $1,000 a tree.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
That's what we spend. I just as a proactive thing, again, I just think, can we push RMLD a little bit harder? If we did a drive around and help prioritize for them trees that they should really be paying attention to, can we push them a little bit harder to be a little bit more proactive and reduce down, incidences in the future? I don't know if we can do that or if we have an active program going, but it seems like that would be a good use of our time.
I see RMLD, the mayor tree trucks around all the time. So I think RMLD will spend $1.2 billion in the 3 communities. But I've seen them around town quite a bit. And again, in a proactive way. Putting the trees back over the wires so that, and cutting the tops of the trees off that are dead and things like that. So they've been, from what my observation has been, they've been pretty active and visible.
Is that based on information you asked them to do?
And responsive to.
So is that just their own field work?
They have a pretty extensive plan in place for preventative maintenance. There are plenty of times where we get a call about something. If it's too close to wires, we'll reach out to them, and they're very cooperative with working together. So I have no complaints about how much they're able to do for us. But like I said, it's all the streets too that don't have any wires on the opposite sides of the streets, and like the lieutenant administrator said, parcels of land that are in the middle of nowhere. That we get calls that there's a tree hanging over my pool in my backyard, and we look at the maps and it's town-owned land behind their house. That's something that we have to deal with on a regular basis as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I guess one more, because I know this will probably be a hot topic for the overall budget. In Western Mass, a lot of towns, there's a lot of trees that are borderline, right? They're on town property and then your property, and then generally it leans towards personal property. In Western Mass, they allow you to pay a nominal fee, so basically the debate's over, so you don't have to come out and survey and then hire a tree company. Is there a way that you could generate revenue on those borderline cases to help offset this for those trees? I mean, there's probably thousands of trees that are right on the line. I'd rather just give the town $1,000 and be done with it and get on a list, generate revenue towards this rather than fight it out. So that might be something to look at. I know some towns do offer that. And then we generate revenue to offset the cost of the employees. Western Mass. I was in Southampton, Mass. But out there, you know, because there's a lot more roads and a lot more trees, right?
Yeah.
So they don't want to fight with the homeowner. And, you know, like I can think of one in my property right now. It's on the line. I'm not quite sure if it's town-owned or I own it. But if it's easier or a way to generate revenue, it might be something to consider.
Thought. All set? Hold on.
Machinery maintenance, FY24 budget, $1,525. It is slightly down to $348,609. Overall net decrease $2,916. There's an increase in the personal services of $4,084. The level funded purchase services and purchase supplies. A net decrease in miscellaneous small capital of $7,000. The small capital request is for new tires on the front end loader.
I know that DPW is also extending their services. I don't know if it falls in here or not, but they were extending their services to like help them maintain some of the town vehicles. Is that in this budget or is that somewhere else?
We're extending our services to.
Could you repeat, talk about the school department, council on aging?
Well, no. My understanding was they were doing like some basic service for the overall town vehicles, like oil changes and things like that, instead of going to Ford and Stone, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Is that in here or is that somewhere else?
Our operation, yeah. Machinery maintenance.
No, so this is just for public works vehicles. We have this police vehicles that we work on, their repairs and maintenance are paid for out of the police budget. The council on aging has their own repair budget. The pool vehicles, the school vehicles, whenever we work on someone else's vehicles, we're sure to charge them for that.
You do blessings?
We charge them back for the maintenance. Yeah, so if we buy oil filters for the school's paying.
Yeah, I mean, the public should know that that's actually a really value-added service that you guys provide that costs the town a lot more if we outsourced it like we did before. So it's a really good thing that you do that.
Cemetery and grounds, FY24 budget of $199,096. FY25 budget, $212,501. Overall net increase of $13,405. There's a small increase in personal services, level funded for personal purchase of services, supplies, and other charges. We do have a net increase in miscellaneous capital of $11,500. The purchase of a new lawnmower to replace the oldest mower. It's over 15 years old.
Do we have any funding in the budget to assist in the maintenance of some of the older cemeteries, the gravestones? I just noticed, because I drive by Park Street all the time, I noticed a number of gravestones down, you know. Do we do anything to maintain, to upright them, or?
To try to restore and upright headstones that fall.
Right.
I mean, I think the guys will do what they can, but we haven't got any contract.
Correct. We do not. There is no funding or contract in place for the rehabilitation service for old headstones.
Do you think that's something we should be doing? I mean, I just, again, I drive by the Park Street Cemetery, which is an older cemetery, you know, a couple hundred years old. And I've noticed more of the stones are down, and not necessarily broken, but they're down or leaning, about to fall. At some point, and I know, people that do some maintenance of these things, it seems as though there's more that's required at this particular time.
There's a level of, if you talk about historic cemeteries and stones that have fallen and some have cracked, typically to preserve what's there, they leave it in place if it's a historic value to it. But if you can afford to hire a professional to put them back together and upright them, that's a project that you would do in particular cemeteries. So.
We haven't done a survey, have we, yet?
There's no survey of how bad conditions are as far as falling.
I just think we should probably take a look at that. And I just, like I said, this is right on 62 as I'm driving by. I'm noticing more of it. Down off Chestnut Street, we have some other old cemeteries, and even in Riverside. We should be at least taking a look at maintaining them a little bit better if we can. See what the costs associated with it, and then make a decision.
Yeah, we could
make a decision later on. But I think we should do a survey at some point. Might not be for this fiscal year, but in the next fiscal year, just take a look at it. Or if there's some way of starting the program.
No, I think we could definitely get a list together of headstones that are needing repair.
Just a thought.
You're talking about older ones that maybe there's no family or anybody.
Oh, yeah, no, the ones that I'm talking about right now are 150, 200 years old. And it's just, as you're driving down 62, I just have to realize, as I'm sitting at the light at Chestnut Street, Central Street, I'm sitting at the light at Central Street, you get to notice it a little bit more. Yeah, truly, so it's just something we should take a look at.
I think where they even are. Another one is 62, but another one near Chestnut.
Yeah, so not necessarily newer ones that they might be family responsible, but older ones that there's probably nobody paying attention to them anymore.
Right. Yeah. In the cemeteries that are basically historic or inactive.
Yeah, right. They're full.
And those headstones tend to be thinner headstones and probably not much of a foundation.
Right.
So they lean, will eventually fall. But unless you're geared up to do a full, I don't want to say reinstallation, but upright them again, but deal with cracks because they could tend to break.
Yeah, it's like an old slate or something. But I mean, I'm just saying, let's take a look at least get an assessment of what the situation is.
Exactly.
That's character. Anybody else?
That's character.
Town buildings. FY24 budget, $804,801. FY25 budget, $878,442. Overall increase of $73,641. You have an increase in personal services of $21,541. Increase in purchase services, $47,006. That's to reflect projected increases due to inflation and contract obligations for energy and water, custodial services, plumbing services, electrical services, and general contract. Increase in purchase supplies of $4,500. Budget supply line item has been increased based on analysis of past usage. And the miscellaneous small capital is level funded. We had $26,000 last year and proposed to put another $26,000 in repertoire buildings for, well, there's a generator installation and also interior painting of town buildings.
Like the Damon Tavern, exterior Damon Tavern.
So we've done exterior of Damon Tavern.
Yes, the building was completely repainted in its entirety. And currently we're looking to replace the windows also.
And then,
Now the emergency backup generators for Damon Tavern.
Yes.
Right?
that's for the Damon Tavern also?
Yeah, yes. There's certainly some issue of power went out long-term as far as, maintaining the heating there and not having damage, to sprinkler systems.
Right,
and-
yeah, there's a fire suppression system in the building, and the intent is to install a emergency generator to support the building.
In this building?
This one
Yeah.
has one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what about as far as maintenance upkeep, what do we got in, how are we doing here? This
Well,
is
we're looking at,
like the
we're
money
gonna be
pit.
renovating the bathroom here.
What's that?
This year, we're gonna be renovating this bathroom here, and we're gonna continue interior renovations as far as handicap accessibility. We'd like to increase, like push button in the bathrooms, as far as the customer service desks in the clerk's office and also in the DPW area. We'd like to have it more handicap accessible in that.
We're gonna be doing some flooring work shortly as well.
Yes, yeah.
So we already did some bathroom renovation in the men's room. The ladies' room will be starting shortly.
Yes.
Got that going on. And then following that would be some flooring work as well. Prior to all of that, we did a lot of, I guess, mini split work, HVAC work. So,
And, we've also increased the makeup air into the building. We've replaced the vents in on the roof of the building. We've also upgraded some of our electrical in the building to support the new HVAC and other future needs of the building. We're in the process now of looking at replacing the surveillance cameras in the building and access controls.
the gym floor will be done shortly as well. Is that
Yes,
correct?
we're going to be looking to do some renovations to the gym floor, replacing that with a poured-in rubber flooring, and also painting the interior of the gymnasium.
Do we get revenue from the gym, or is that all, like,
It's almost recreation, for the most part.
As far as, we have no plans as far as windows for this building. They're 1960 vintage, when the building was built.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a good next step.
Yeah, we could look at that.
Short of
capital.
bulldozing this place, it's, I mean, part of the needs we have for the mini splits and all this, because it's not very energy efficient. The windows are, again, 1960s. I don't see us moving for a while.
You'll probably see.
As much as I'd like to see us move or something, but,
Yeah. The windows are back, for sure.
the windows are the mini splits obviously cut down on the noise on the machine that goes on over there once in a while. The heating systems, it's tough.
I guess I just seriously wonder how much we should be putting in this building
I feel the
versus,
same way.
you know.
Bulldoze sounds
I'll be
good.
right.
I don't want to bulldoze it, but the thing is, we have to pay for it. We
Right.
have a whole host of projects in front of us that need addressing, and it's part of a grander scheme, plan, but you're sitting on 9.5 acres here.
Absolutely.
Of a lot of wasted space,
Yep.
and very inefficient building here. But in order to replace it, do it wisely and well, it's going to be costly. So in the meantime, it's going to be a decade or more before it actually gets done. So we need to do something to maintain what we have.
I honestly can see putting town function into the intergenerational community center, combine it all together, make it efficient, and get rid of this, sell the lot, that's absolutely a down deposit towards building the intergenerational community center. And then you'd have everybody in one place.
Hi, I have one question. Laurie Norino from Transcript. I almost hate to bring this up, but the other day I stopped by the town clerk's office and I said, "What is that smell?" And she goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, it smells like exhaust of some sort." She said, "Oh, no. We're told that's a dead animal in the wall that's dying and we can't get to it."
If I could speak on that. It was a mouse. We actually brought in an exterminator, and it was a mouse in the wall. And unfortunately, we don't have access to that. It's since dissipated.
It was
So,
bad.
Yeah.
I felt
was.
awful for them having to be there. They're like, well, it's not as bad when you're not standing at the counter.
We put deodorizers in the area and charcoal filters to...
I saw the charcoal bags.
Yeah, to remediate that in the interim until it dissipates.
But that just brought up to me a larger question of, is that a common occurrence? Do animals commonly die in the malls?
Unfortunately, it does happen, yes. And I'd like to report the library recently just went through an air quality test last week, and it passed with the Mass Department of Public Health. And we're meeting the needs of the town, and it's something we take very serious. And, air quality is important to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of unavoidable.
Yeah, yes, my nose works.
Anything else?
Stormwater, FY24 budget, $450,425. The FY25 budget, $493,781. Overall increase of $43,326. There's some increases in personnel services to reflect contractual increases. Increase in purchase services of $35,712. There's an increase in professional services of $26,462 due to the need for the further culvert assessments that we're going to be doing. And the implementation of the program.
All culverts, so we don't run into last minute problems.
Correspondingly, there'll be an increased need for police details as well. Purchase supplies is level funded.
As far as compliance issues with state and federal regulations, we're in good shape now?
Yeah, we've been keeping up with the new stormwater permit requirements. There's a lot of work out there that we're discovering because of the efforts that we need to do, but that's all part of it, right? We don't want any surprises.
Right.
So Water Enterprise Fund. So the FY24 budget, we ended up with personnel costs of $808,146. Expenses $2.8 million. Miscellaneous capital $9,000 in direct costs of $524,267, and debt service $1,088,000. The FY25 budget request, personnel costs are at $814,723, an increase of $6,577. Contractual obligations. The expense budget has gone up to $2,880, an increase of $73,093. A lot of that has to do with the purchase of water from Andover. This is $2,006 increase. And a net increase in other miscellaneous expenses of $11,037. Miscellaneous capital has been reduced to zero. It's a $9,000 reduction over last year. The indirect cost, $537,374, represents a 2.5% increase from last year. And debt service is now at $1,382,543. That's an increase of 27% over last year. So the overall budget change is $377,978, 7.2% overall increase. So I think you all know debt service is the money we borrow to do capital projects. We've been doing a number of capital projects. We have needs in both our water distribution system, but also our water storage tanks that store the water that's already been brought into town from Andover. And we're currently doing an assessment of one of the tanks to do some renovations. Ultimately, it's going to be painted. And we have others that will probably follow behind as well. Any questions on water enterprise?
Just a quick question. Since we switched from us doing our own water to Andover, I think our personnel expenses dropped dramatically. So while it's increasing now, I think we need less staff to maintain this. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so it's still good. I mean, it was probably a lot higher at one point, it's gone down, and now you're just in normal cost of living increases or things like that. Correct me if I say that? Or do we expect more potential reductions in that staff?
So the impact started in making adjustments in advance of a potential switch to the MWRA. We talked at the time about potentially reducing 2 staff positions. What ultimately I think ended up happening is one of those positions was converted to I think a labor or still grassroots position, and another I think has remained vacant if I recall correctly. I'm kind of looking at Mr. Nemec because the team was in the history. Does that sound safe? I thought it was one and one.
Yeah, so the water department has 4 employees down at the garage. One, the water department pays for one of the highway employees as well, as an interdepartmental, I guess. And then one of those positions, it used to be 6. So one of those has been eliminated since.
Okay, and there were going to be 2. One was converted to a different type of position. Okay, but that adjustment's already.
That's already happened.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
So what are the indirect costs? What's indirect costs?
That was my question.
So the indirect costs are, because it's an enterprise, we make a transfer from the enterprise to the general fund for things like health insurance, long-term employee benefits, trying to think, some of the accounting staff time, some of the town administrators' time, like small amounts that over the years, years back there was a study done, all the little pieces that should, really they should contribute to the general fund because of the services we in essence provide to them. You know, some of the IT time, treasurer collector's time, that's it, collecting bills. So we do have a list.
Yeah, okay, I'm just curious, I mean, there's a significant dollar amount as far as an increase. It's only 2.5%, but it's still a significant dollar.
The increase is 2.5%, but the total purchase level is $537,000.
That's the total number?
That's the total.
Yeah, oh yes, that's
Okay,
the total,
that's
that's
not
not
an
the increase.
No, that's
not
the
the
increase.
Yeah, no, that's the total.
Okay, all right, that's the total. And then, what was the increase that the Andover anticipates or voted on?
The increase this year was 2.5%.
It was 2.5%?
Yeah, that's our contractually is till 2027, 2028.
Right.
It's 2.5 every year. And that's when we discussed previously on the other budget here, the rate hearings of getting to where Andover will be in the upcoming.
Are you aware as to what they've done to the rest of their people up there? Actually, it was 2.5% or whatever they increased everybody else, right? It was.
No matter what they increase, our contract with them is 2.5% currency.
And then they go to a different tier system. We pay the same as their lowest rate.
95% of their tier 1 is what we will be at in 2027, 2028.
And again, they're also crediting us to the tune of about $100,000 a year for the 10-year period.
It is 95%.
Yeah. The other thing is, as far as, I still see the temporary trailer, was it chlorination?
Yeah, so we shut that down right at September, October, when the new stations went online.
That's why I was wondering if it was still there. Are we still renting space?
Yeah, so yeah, we're in the, once the weather kind of breaks and we have some time to get over there, we're gonna take that out of there and clean that area.
Because I know we're paying a little bit of rent.
Yeah, there was an agreement that was made at the time to use that small space with the.
So that is coming out, and it's been decommissioned at this point? It's just.
Yeah, water shut off, electricity's off there, so yeah. We're just gonna remove the trailer from the property.
The new facility at, I think it's a 202 Main Street.
303.
303, yeah, that's
up and running.
Correct, yeah, that's been running since September, as well as the one that's
I just, drive by, I see the temporary trailer's still there, and I was just, and I know we're paying rent, and I don't know if we own that equipment? Or do we?
Yeah, all the equipment there we own.
Okay.
So yeah, like I said, once it kind of hit right at getting the new stations up and running, it was there, it was just one of those ones.
Just in case, didn't,
exactly. So yeah, now that we've had a few months under the belt of new stations running, we'll get that removed, hopefully early spring.
And then as far as what's being proposed here, what are we looking at for an overall increase, maybe when we have our hearing in June?
I think you're going to see a number that's approaching that percentage. We've been talking about year plan at the last rate hearing, that, like, what was it, percent of the 6 we were talking about?
I think it was.
Yep.
So it's
So
gonna
yeah, the
be,
debt service is what should have been factored into our multi-year projection that we kind of presented in the last rate hearing, so.
so we've been talking at the rate hearings that, multiple years of that rate increase because of the debt service pushing it. It could have been far worse. We were trying to absorb the increase associated with the NWRA. Fortunately, that's not been the case. There is going to be an adjustment for the Andover IMA that we talked about. Fiscal years. We're planning for that as well, with those rate increases. So there is going to be an impact once again this year, and that rate's usually low.
Finance?
Could you remind us the investments that are involved in the debt service increase?
Over a number of years. I think a lot of it was the water distribution mains, replacing those. But also there is a couple of new chemical feed stations that were most recently completed. And if you go even further back, I don't know if we have.
Yeah, no, the biggest increase is going to be the water main work that we had done. We did new water main work from Burroughs Road up to North Street. We did all of North Street up to the Moose Hill, Shady Hill, Puritan Road. So we've done a lot of increase in water mains work as well. And this year we're also doing Ely Park, Oakdale Road, Sherman Road, and Mead Road. So I believe all of those kind of just hit the books this last year and this year.
Just as far as Oakdale, Sherman, which is my neighborhood, that's all
Towards the
Oakdale,
school.
towards the
Oakdale
school.
towards the school is those 2 roads.
I was hoping you'd do in front of my house, so that you'd have to pave the road.
As we plan our roadway improvements, that we also want to make sure that everything below the roads are renewed if they're old. So that includes, water mains. So we try to get that the year before, if not sooner, than when we plan to do the paving. So.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
All right. So just a summary of DPW personnel service budget. You can see each department broken down, division broken down there. Bottom line increase of 175,000 or 7.78%. We also have a similar breakdown on the DPW expenses with an overall increase of 180,905 or 4.14%. You can see, the things we've already talked about, road and streets, food care, and town buildings, stormwater, and water. Here's a little summary of the miscellaneous capital projects within the DPW budget. We have the road and street has a line paving machine and power tools to replace some of the older ones we have. Machinery maintenance, the front end loader tires were in that budget. Cemetery parks and grounds, the lawnmower purchase. In town buildings, Damon Tavern emergency generator, and the interior painting of town buildings. All total $66,000. And that's it.
All right. Do my colleagues have any comments, questions further?
I just want to acknowledge the work that the department does for the citizens of the town, day in, day out, 365 days a year, many times unseen, behind the scenes, and 24 hours a day. They're on call and do a fantastic job. Tree maintenance or even engineering, negotiating with other communities as far as our future needs, and maintaining our water system, maintaining our buildings. I think everybody overall is very satisfied. I know sitting here being a little bit closer than most, a great appreciation for all that we the staff too, and fantastic job. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
No, I concur with Steve. Same thing. It's seamless and sometimes not seen, but you never look around going, why isn't that being taken care of? Doesn't it?
You've been down in the culverts an awful lot lately, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Out of the trenches.
I will echo my colleagues, yes. I mean, I rarely hear a complaint about the roads, about plowing. I mean, you hear some complaints, but I mean, mostly it's positive.
Yeah, the road conditions are what they are.
They are what they are.
Our resources are limited, and the genesis of my question is, are we getting ahead of where we were? And it appears as though we are, which is a good thing, because we were way behind as far as what we need to do to maintain the level. I mean, people pay a lot of money in real estate taxes here in town, and some people do get a little bit ticked off about the road conditions in front of their home, and that's justifiable. But again, the cost of, I just remind them, how much would it cost to do your driveway? And you're asking us to do the entire street, from curb to curb. So that kind of gives me a little reality check, but still, I just want people to know that we are on track to get ahead of it from where we were before, which was behind. And efforts are being made, resources being spent. We don't blame you.
I understand.
You get the calls.
But it doesn't go unappreciated, very much, so it's very much appreciated.
Thank you. All right, finance, anything more?
Yeah, I have a question. My understanding is there's a potential increase to Chapter 90, is that correct?
Potential increase in the next year's allotment?
Yeah.
I haven't heard that there anything more significant. I mean, there was a recent additional supplemental funds were sent to the town. We have already programmed that for some road work.
Okay.
Madam Chair, through you, I was at an MMA legislative breakfast, and they are, in the same fashion they have in recent years, looking to potentially supplement that baseline Chapter 90 money. They're very clear to say they're not going to increase that number, which I think is $200 million statewide. There was one year, I think we got $300 million. There have been other years where we've gotten smaller chunks of we get a share of that number. That's a statewide number I'm describing. But you may see a statewide, addition to that $200 million. That's part of the year.
Anybody else? Good? Good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have a motion.
We have a motion. We have a motion?
Oh, sorry, we didn't print it for you. There's a motion to adjourn.
Oh, last meeting, what?
I second what Michael said.
I'll second his motion.
All right, I have a motion, and I have a second by Mr. O'Leary. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all for
being here. Give it up your Saturday morning.